TikTok, it's time to rock. It's the Sunday show, and it's the ranking the tracks on the British Electric Blues show. Have I got the right show, Brad? Am I on the right show?
Look, I don't know, Andrew. Did you practice about your third today? Fourth?
Yeah.
Fourth for the week?
Last 10 minutes. He just rolls from one show to the next.
Oh my!
You must be confused, Andrew, because I am.
Oh, well, look, no disrespect to anything else that we do on this channel, but it's always a pleasure. It's always a weekly highlight, even though we couldn't get together last week to hang out on this time slot with you guys. It's always a pleasure to do that, especially when we're doing something a little bit different, something that is related to what we do, but the album is a little bit different. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, because we were just having a little bit of a chat in the green room. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. So what am I doing, guys? Are we going to bring in our guests now, or are we just going to let them hang out in the green room for a little while, and we're just going to talk here? What are we going to do, Brad?
I think we've left him hanging pretty long now. I think it's time to
bring him in. Bring him in. Yes.
All right.
He needs to help with the work.
Yeah, get him working. Do you want to introduce him, bro? Can you introduce him?
A couple of weeks ago, we had Zakk Edras on the show, and we pinned him down to do a ranking of the tracks of this album, Come to Meet the Band by Deep Purple. So without further ado, bring Zachy in. Andrew, bring him in. Still not used to the captain.
Stop that now.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Zakk. Good to see you, brother.
Good to see you too.
Thanks.
Good morning, Zakk.
I know we got you on with you.
Afternoon.
Yeah.
No, I love this album.
Yeah. Actually been holding off doing this album, so it must have been a reason why. Because as soon as you mentioned it, it's one of the ones that it's like when you put on a Deep Purple record, it's not the first album you think of putting on, but as soon as you actually pick up the cover or see it in your Spotify, it's like, I haven't heard that for ages. Put it on, it's fantastic. But I'm looking forward to it, guys. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
How you been, Zakk? What have you been up to? I know you're not gigging at the moment. You're on a bit of a break. But do you want to tell the people who are new to us what you do for a living? You're a guitarist in which band and what you're up to, and if you've got any dates you want to push?
Playing a band called Chocolate Starfish. We've been on a little bit of a couple of month break, but we're back into it in about 2 weeks. We start doing these One Electric Day shows, which are pretty huge. We do that for about a month, and then I know next year we're starting. We're going to do every year we do a classic album tour. And before I joined, they did Bad Out of Hell Meatloaf album, and we're doing it again and doing a national tour starting February 3rd, I think.
That's a production, Zakk. Blimey.
A lot of work in that one.
Probably the most dramatic songs ever recorded, I'd say.
Yeah, no, that's cool. No, well, so we will share all your links and everything to this later on, Zakk. So anyone who's interested can go check out what Zakk's up to, and go and support him and support live music, because that's what we're a big push on that. So we want everyone to get out and see a band, support live industry. What do you think, Andrew?
Awesome. I think it's a good idea, and we've done that on the other stream that we did with Zakk. We included all his links, so we'll do that. Happy to do that. Any other activities or gigs that you have coming up, Zakk, that you want to take advantage of our channel to promote? Just get in touch with Brad, and we'll do it. We're happy to do that for you, brother.
Thank you.
Because Rock Professor, we've reached another milestone on the channel over the last couple of days.
Yes, we have, and they keep rolling past, don't they? It's fantastic. We just passed 8,000 subscribers. That's yeah. So we're nearly at 809. We are now. So we've put on another 90, which is incredible. Considering at Easter we had 925. And in 6 months, we've put on 7,000 subscribers. That's amazing. So thank you to everyone who subscribed. It's really cool. And we're really happy the channel's growing.
I tend to think it's because of all the clickbait you share on the channel.
There's a lot of reasons why, ladies and gentlemen, why we achieve, these achievements, and I'm always going to be the one to back Brad up when he says that. Zakk, we use our own models too.
Yeah, be afraid, be very afraid.
Yeah. We use our own models for the clickbait, So
Brad, guns cook. Look at that guns on him.
Yeah.
That's not the one. That's not the one that brings all the subscribers in. Where's the other one, Andrew?
Did you put a bit of,
we'll show that one at the end.
Brad?
and we don't and we don't go and pinch or nick what is it, graphics off the internet, so we use our own. But also guys, seriously, I've got to tell you this. I got a couple of messages last night from a couple of people that were watching the stream that we did yesterday, and they were interested. I'm not saying that we know it all here. I'm not saying that we know it all, but when we were talking about the fact that we shared a couple of our Beatles ranking tracks episodes, Zakk, on the official Beatles Revolver post on Facebook, because you can go and put comments in there, and you can go and add a link. We got 100 within 4 hours, 100 subscribers, and how many views did we get on that, Simon? On that video?
Well, the Beatles one, it went from 150 to 1,300.
Yeah.
And the Eric Clapton, the unplugged one, had 140 views, and that went to 1,200.
Yeah.
So sharing them makes a huge difference, really huge.
Yeah, and Brad, that's all we've done. You just go and grab the link and put it on, and clearly, obviously, too, we've got people like Teresa who've been sharing our link. Tim Thomas, a lot of people here. Hugh Caldwell, who's going to join us next week. So we always appreciate that, and we always want to help anybody that's related to our channel. If we can help them with anything that they do, we'll do something for them.
Yeah.
Brad, you've got some other news for us, brother.
I do, don't I? What is it? Oh yeah, Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix. So today
Get the
marks
right Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix. A bit of a brain fart back in the green room, so I nearly had a heart attack. I won't tell you what he said. I was going to take a week off work as soon as he said it. I was like, and he goes, "No, wrong Jimmy." I was like, "Oh, thank God." Thank God. So, yeah.
You get a day for the Queen and a week for Jimmy Page. They are.
Please,
you heard it here first.
Pagey's got to live forever. He's a wizard. The anniversary of Jimi Hendrix's passing today. So after this show, go whack on Axis Boulders Love or Banner Gypsies or something. Go and have a listen to some Jimmy, and share the Jimmy love, the Jimmy vibes.
The Jimmy vibes.
Yeah. And so that's all I really had to talk about, Andrew. But it's great to have you on, Zakk. Have you got anything you want to talk about, Andrew or Simon?
No, I just want to say thank you again to my co-hosts, our guest hosts who have been on our channel, past hosts who have helped us, going back all the way to Carl, and obviously everybody in the chat that supports us. Alan's in the chat. You know, the people have been with us, you know, from the start, but also the people that have come in, and when they've come in have been, you know, just loyal supporters of what we do here. Means a lot, doesn't it, Simon?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And the same faces turn up, and you know, it's really pleasing to see those people.
And the people that watch us back
afterwards.
Thank you too.
Yeah. Because most of our views are from people after the event, which is amazing. Yeah. But that's the way our model works.
You know, that you know, just backing up what Andrew said, you know, we couldn't be more grateful for the recent subscribers and everything that you guys do to help share our channel. It's amazing. Thank you.
Awesome. Leave some comments as to where you're from and where you're watching and things. That would be great. Yeah. Nice
chuck it in the comments watching this back, and let us know who you are, what you do. If you're a guitar player or a musician, that's always good to know. You know, because we like doing geeky guitar things on this channel. So the more guitarists the merrier. So we'll do more geeky stuff. Yeah. So we've got actually got some good things planned coming up, which I won't tell you exact people, but we've got a gentleman who builds fuzzers over in North America, I think it is, who's going to come on and talk fuzzers, fuzz faces, and everything to do with fuzzers, which would be really cool. We've got another, I guess, celebrity from YouTube who has got a very successful channel. We're going to get him to join us as well. I'll keep you guys in the loop as soon as I can get confirmation. Keep you guys wondering who it is. And a couple of guitar players that I've been connected with over the last year or two. I'm reaching out to them, so we'll see what happens. It's like we did with you, Zakk. We get guys in and just talk guitars and talk all the good stuff. You know, could talk for hours about it. It's easy. You know. So today, guys, we're talking about, this is Zakk's choice, and this is why we dragged him in kicking and screaming. We're going to do Come Taste the Band by Deep Purple. So are you guys ready to dive into that?
Sure.
Shall I'll just say hello to the people in the chat and stuff.
Yes,
my usual quick roll call before we start.
Yeah.
Good morning to Tim Thomas, Digital Guitars UK. Fellow UK person. Good morning. Holly Lewis. Morning, Holly. Hope you're well. Thank you so much for the song. Fantastic. We've got our own song written about us by Holly.
And I'm sorry, Holly, I haven't had an opportunity to edit that as a separate video. I'll do that tomorrow at work.
Have you been busy, by the way? Yes. Great show with Alan Garber. Great show with I haven't watched it yet, but it will be great with Jim and John Conklin.
Can't keep up.
That's why he's like wide-eyed and slightly wild. And he's going last this time, so we keep him under control. So yes, thanks to Holly for the song. Fantastic, I loved it. And there's not many channels got their own song written by one of their team. It's lovely. That's so. Good morning to Ellen, Tim Thomas, Digital Guitars. I think that's probably who we've got. And everybody who's Nelson Rodriguez. Good morning, Nelson. Good to see you, man. As ever, rocking out somewhere in his own world, Nelson. So welcome to you all. Thanks for joining. I'll also give a quick shout out to Joe Wentz, who had his operation a week ago. His cancerous kidney operation, which has gone really well. He did a bit of a show last night to give us an update. So he's beginning to feel better. So get well soon, Joe. We hope you're good, man. Get back on the YouTube train soon.
Good news. Good news.
And a shout out to Warren as well. I don't know whether anyone's heard of him, but from him in recent months. But we'll keep shouting him out. See if he notices.
Send us a message, Warren, if you're watching. Let us know you're okay, brother.
Yeah. And and thanks for not asking. My gig yesterday was jolly good fun.
Oh, so this is the thing. Andrew normally asks these questions, Simon.
You gotta push yourself in on
Buddy,
this show,
buddy,
brother.
that's it. Come on.
How did it go?
Yeah, it was lovely. Little lunchtime thing. So yeah, in the first game of the local village rugby team season. So they had a hog roast and various other things, and a few bands, including me and Dave. We had a lovely time, and home by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Couldn't be bad.
Can you tell I'm like into maintenance and like I do gardens and maintenance around in my job. So the first thing I noticed in your picture, Simon, at your gig was how green the grass was.
Yeah, look at that. You see, that's because it's watered especially for us. That's in our rider. The grass must be green.
Well, you won't play.
It won't play unless the grass is green. See, that's
green
after
on the other side.
Yeah,
the grass has always got to be greener on the other side, mate.
Our side. That's where it's got to be greener. That was lovely. It was really nice. The sun shone, and we were in a tent, but that marquee was great. Yeah, really nice. We had a lovely time, Dave and I. Really
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Anyway, enough of my self-regarding nonsense. Let's get on with the show.
All right. Well, today, like I was saying, we're going through the Deep Purple album, "Come Taste the Band." It's this album in particular was recorded by the Mark IV lineup, the one and only album that the lineup actually did. It was released in November '75 and co-produced and engineered by the longtime associate Martin Birch, who's a pretty well-known sort of producer in that era. It's definitely an overlooked album, but really should be, in my opinion, classified as a work of art. It's a great album. Previous album, Stormbringer, was received well. Deep Purple fans didn't really want to listen to anything that was recorded without Ian Gillan, which was weird. But obviously this album in particular, Richie Blackmore, founding member, was unhappy with the musical direction the band was going in, and he quit the band after the Stormbringer tour in '75. Blackmore had gone on to form Rainbow before he left Deep Purple, and he started recording their album before he left Deep Purple. I think Blackmore, in his way of thinking, was that was the end of Deep Purple. They wouldn't continue without Richie Blackmore, but he was sorely mistaken because David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes were interested to continue with a new guitarist, and they persuaded Ian Pace and John Lord to record another album with a new guitar player. Coverdale found a new guitarist. His name was Tommy Bolin, and the rest of the band were very impressed with him. They'd heard his playing on album, Billy Cobham's Spectrum album. So that they listened to that and thought, this guy's fantastic, we'll get him in. And they decided to record with him pretty much straight away. So enter Tommy Bolin into the fold, and a Deep Purple lineup without the original guitar player, which not sure how, Richie Blackmore was looked upon in that band as a leader. So I guess in a roundabout way, the fans were probably a little bit confused about that at the time. Things would not go as smoothly for the band when they were recording this album as they did with Burn and Stormbringer. While Coverdale, John Lord and Ian Pace were dedicated, Hughes was unfortunately having a lot of drug problems, and the new recruit Bolin was also a heavy user of drugs, and it did have an impact on Glenn Hughes's playing and what he contributed to the record. But when we go through the rankings, I'm going to basically point out the fact that if he was in a pretty bad way, then he contributed pretty damn well because there's some fantastic vocals and playing from Glenn Hughes. You know, the continuing trend of Deep Purple at that time, they were getting a little bit more funkier, a little bit more soul was coming into the fold, especially with the vocals. You could hear, you know, the BVs were a lot more soul and funk than they were rock. Without a doubt, Coverdale and Hughes found it a lot easier to work with Tommy Boland than Richie Blackmore. Richie was known to be a little bit of a stick in the mud and a bit of a quirky guy. So
are you suggesting that Mr. Blackmore is known to be difficult?
I'm not suggesting anything. I'm just
unbelievable.
Richie is one of my favorite guitar players, so I'm not going to bag him, but he was a difficult person to work with, apparently. Boland had been recruited to play guitar, but he did do some bass guitar duties while Glenn Hughes apparently was too ill to do so. I think Boland played bass on Dealer and Drifter, and he also did backing vocals on the songs Love Child. I think previously Coverdale and Hughes would take turns in all their lead vocals, but, you know, they needed someone else to also step up because of Glenn Hughes' state at that point in time. In terms of sales, the album, you know, Come Taste the Band fared pretty well in comparison to the previous album. I think Stormbringer didn't sell as well as Burn. And the tickets to the tour sold really well as well. The band had already decided, though, that as soon as the tour finished, that they would call it quits. And unfortunately, Tommy Boland tragically died as a result of an overdose later that same year. So, guys, have I missed anything that you guys want to talk about in relation to this record?
I think
No.
that Boland actually played bass on Coming Home.
Did he?
And I think there's because I think it's actually Hughes playing bass on The Dealer and Drifter, because I've had a really good listen to it.
Okay.
That's the only critique of your marvelous intro, I would say.
It's hard to tell.
Hughes is just not around. Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen a documentary, and I couldn't find it before the show for some reason. It was on YouTube. Maybe it's taken down. But I did know, and I actually thought Boland did the Coming Home vocal in Coming Home.
Yeah, I've seen that doco, and Hughes complains about it because he goes, they're going, coming home, and obviously he would have improved it, as he says.
But so I guess the next thing is what we normally do, Zakk, is we all go around and talk about like the first time we might have heard this album or how we were introduced to it. So do you want to start off, Zakk, and let us know, you know, the first time you heard this album or who introduced you to this record or how you discovered it?
Yeah, it was in high school back in the late 70s. I had a friend called Stephen Thornton, and he was a Deep Purple nut. He had everything, and I'd go to his place after school and grab a few albums for a few weeks. And the very first one was Made in Japan. But then, and I was, you know, the late 70s live albums were really popular, so I grabbed, I think the next one would have been Made in Europe. And I was like, wow, these guys sound totally different now. And I adored both of them, but I always gravitated towards Coverdale and Hughes.
Yeah.
And then the next one I grabbed was Last Concert in Japan. Have you guys heard that?
Yes.
Apparently that's supposed to be terrible. Is it the one where Tommy Bolin falls asleep on the and then can only play bar chords? So John Norton has to play all the guitar parts.
Yeah. So the rest of the band are on fire. Like I always looked at it in the positive, and you know, Hughes and Coverdale singing on that live album is unbelievable. So I kind of always liked it. And when I grew up, I read how much the band hated it, and when I started playing guitar, I was like, oh yeah, he's just playing bar chords, but it still holds it does hold a special place in my heart. But So then I went backwards, and so then I got Come Taste the Band. I reckon this would have been maybe 79 or 78 or something, and I didn't know that people kind of scoffed at it when it came out. I've always thought this isn't Deep Purple, but I always thought it was an amazing album.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I only heard it maybe a few years after its actual release. So it was kind of still a bit of a new album, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simon, how about yourself, mate?
Well, clearly because I'm old, Jim. I mean, I've seen both the I've seen the classic lineup and all the other. No, I haven't. I've seen the Blackmore Gillan lineup, and I also saw the Coverdale Hughes lineup as well. So both those lineups I've seen live when they were doing it. So I mean, when this came out, I came across it when it came out, but I think it, was amongst the people who bought Deep Purple records and had Deep Purple records, it didn't really hit in the same way as previous ones had done. Even Byrne, I think, with Blackmore on him, had a particular sound, and he's got a particular style. And it's so strong that this was different. And I think that my memory is that a lot of people just didn't take to it because it was a different sound. I think if it had come out as a different album, it probably might have fared better. But, then, the fans' comparison was that this was a different direction and not as good as, as In Rock or Machine Head or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, and I think, those are colossus of album. Machine Head is particularly, is a colossus of an album. You're always in the shadow of that to some extent, and with lineup changes and those things, you've got to go in a different direction. But it's, whether it fares against what you've already done is a really tricky business, I think. I think you just got to keep going, haven't you? Not worry about it. But I don't think it didn't fare as well as those albums, by comparison. I think was in their shadow for sure.
How about you, Andrew?
Probably 88, 89, driving around with a guy called Wayne Beasley and Terry Robin and a 72 Holden with a 308. And you guys remember in those olden days, used to have boxes that used to hold your cassette tapes in, and they were like 20, you could hold. Do you remember those olden days, and they had like a lid,
Olden days? You mean yesterday?
These things, cassette tapes, so I remember. See, he's old. He's got some. He's
yes, we've all got them. Yes. Never mind.
Yeah. But I remember, and I was listening to Deep Purple at the time, guys. I was familiar with the classic albums, but what struck me about this album was the cover. The cover is unusual, and later on, Brad will go through some pics that he's got for us to have a look at, and I do remember looking at the pic thinking, oh, this is fantastic, and then listening to that while we were driving around doing legal things.
Did you say legal or illegal?
Legal things.
Oh, right. Yes, okay.
Yeah.
Legal.
And listening to that album, and I remember thinking that there was no jolt for me when I heard this album as far as a continuum with Deep Purple's music. There wasn't like a sharp edge or a blunt punch. It wasn't until when I was in my late 20s when I went and heard this album again, Brad, Simon and Zakk, where and we'll talk about it when we get to the tracks. The first track's fine. The first track is fantastic, and then you get into some of these other tracks, and it's like, and then you listen to the guitar, and it's like, this is not Deep Purple. This is something else altogether. So without talking too much about that, because we'll save that for the tracks, it was always an interesting an interesting flower in the garden of Deep Purple Records. Brad.
Yeah. Well, for me, I was a Deep Purple fan. I I love Deep Purple when I first started playing guitar. They're one of my top 5 favorite bands. I have one of my best mates at the time, Luke Foley, got me into Deep Purple, quite heavily into Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and that. And so for me, it was just I'd bought Machine Head, I bought In Rock, I bought Fireball, I bought the Coverdale Hughes era, and I actually preferred Burn than I did the Gillan era. I was like, Burn's killer album, then Stormbringer. Then the next one, obviously, was Come Taste the Band. I found that. And I knew immediately it wasn't Richie Blackmore on the album because obviously I was looking for Richie Blackmore's name on the cover and it wasn't there. It was a different guitarist. I was like, I didn't really know. And I put it on. I was like, what do you mean it's a different guitar player? But I was pleasantly surprised with his playing because as much as he's a lot different player than Richie, he fit well in the fold, I thought. And the musical direction from Stormbringer to that was just like another continuation into the more funkier stuff. Just, not so much the first track, but as the tracks progress. So for me, I actually really enjoyed this album. And, I drive along in my HG Holden with my elbow out the window, cranked, coming home, listening
doing
to this.
legal stuff.
Doing legal stuff.
HG Holden.
On my way to do illegal stuff. HG Holden. So, yeah. But I would have been probably, 17, 18 when I was getting into playing guitar. And I was, I was called hippie at high school because I listened to Deep Purple and Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, and everyone was listening to Motley Crue. So I was a bit different, but that's just what I got into. Yeah. So that was it for me, guys, this album. So that's how I got into it. Yeah. No surprises. It's just a progression thing. Just went out and bought all the albums eventually through time. Yeah. So Andrew, you are you going to go off and eat a burger while we're doing the show?
No, I'm going to show. Hold on, I'm going to show something for the people.
Yes,
So
look at
that. That's an HG Holden.
Mine was bone colored with a white roof, like two-tone.
Oh, he's so cool.
Yeah, my mate had the HQ with the 308. Oh. So if you're an Australian or a New Zealander, and if you're a certain vintage, you know all about these great cars, don't we?
Are they General Motors? Isn't Holden General Motors, or is it
General Motors? Unfortunately, yeah. Luckily, it's not a Ford.
I've seen a few people there.
Look at that. There goes that sponsorship out the window.
No, I'm a Ford, man. I'm a Ford.
He goes after subscribers, God, should we get into the tracks, guys? Straight into it?
Let's kick it off.
All right. So the format is, Zach, we just go through and each song we go through, give a little bit of the highlights for us in the song and then a ranking. And sometimes we give stupid rankings. And sometimes when people give a bad ranking, we time you out. So it's a bit of fun, mate. So just yeah. I'm not sure. By the sounds of it, Andrew might get timed out. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, there might be one track that might cause a few problems.
So the first track's Coming Home. Like, it's got that really big spacey intro. I love the up-tempo feel to the song. It's sort of reminiscent of something that would have been off Stormbringer or Burn, in my opinion. Tommy Bolin, he shines on this song. He really does. Certainly showcases his slide guitar ability. His guitar solo in this is very intense and powerful. Coverdale's vocals, for me, he's one of my favorite vocalists of this whole era.
Uh-huh.
And I think his vocals are incredible on this album, and this song in particular. The drumming and bass playing just hold it down tight. It's a wonderful opening track to the album, in my opinion. And, you know, can't forget about John Lord. He just fits in there perfectly vamping. And I will say this on this album, John Lord doesn't do a lot of lead playing on this album. I think there's only 2 songs he really plays the solo on. But he's understated, but that fits perfectly in this song. So for rankings, I give this one 10 out of 10, and I would never skip this track. So who's next? Zakk, you next?
Zakk.
Let's go, Zakk.
Okay. Great opener. It's got which is now known as the classic Bolan Echoplex effects in it. And apparently there's no Glenn Hughes on this song at all because he was, they said he was sick.
Otherwise
he was sent to
engaged.
rehab. Yeah. It's probably the most sort of rock song on the album. And it's got that really cool Ian Pace groove behind it. Like it's a rock song with swing.
Yeah.
And I agree with you, Brad. Like that era, Coverdale, even I guess up to 1987, he's probably my favourite rock singer, heavy rock singer of all time. Just love it. And I'll give it an I don't know if I can. I might give one. I give out 10 out of 10. I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. And it's a killer opening track.
That's all right. You definitely won't get timed out for an 8. That's fine.
Awesome, Zakk. Thank you.
Zakk, you can give 8.14s, 8.27, whatever you like. And
I saw Brad. Brad gives 100 out of 10 sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, that's a Brad score. You see, that's a special.
Okay.
It's a special thing that Brad made up. When it's more than 10 out of 10, way more, then it's 100. Then it's a Brad score.
Okay.
Hey, it's one of the things you're allowed to do. You're allowed to go over 10. It's fine. Whatever. But
some songs deserve it. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I'm not complaining, Brad. I promise. I think it's a fantastic thing and should be there, especially as it's called a Brad score because you invented it. It's lots of fun. But, yeah, for me, I agree, Zakk. I think this is the most rock album, and I think that for me, I'm keen on these things. That it's a way of harking back to the previous versions of Deep Purple, which have been, more rock than probably this. And I think, that what you want is that the first song is to be a signpost to the past as much as a signpost to the future. So I felt very strongly. One of the things that struck me about it was that it struck me as being a bit like Highway Star. There was that kind of thing about that Highway Star, that kind of insistent that went on after the initial intro that was a bit like that. And I thought, well, if you're going to steal from Highway Star, you're doing all right. As a kind of signature thing, that kind of insistent rhythm. That I agree that it's interesting, is it, that John Lord's much more being used as a rhythm instrument rather than a sort of co-lead instrument on lots of the songs, including this one, sort of back in the mix and giving Tommy Bolin, he's quite a guitar orientated track, this more than the guitar keyboards that they used to have with Blackmore. That's really cool. I think I think there's some great vocal harmony singing as well. I think that Bolin and Hughes could both sing. So apparently I was doing a bit of research on Tommy Bolin, but apparently when he was making a solo album, he had members of the Beach Boys were encouraging him to sing. Well, so he must have had something about his vocals if the Beach Boys were encouraging him to sing rather than not. But, that's quite fun. But I think I agree with the slide guitar as well. That's sort of a thing, isn't it? And so I gave this 8 out of 10 too, Zakk, and but not a skip. Good opening track.
Andrew.
Mr. Walton.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to say it once and I'm not going to say it anymore, I promise. I'll only say it once, but one of the interesting things about going second to last or last. That, you know, there's not much really you can add because everyone else has highlighted the key points, which is always going to be, you know, fundamental for what we do, isn't it? But the continuity to the past is always important, and we've discussed this on other album openers when they've had personnel changes, Zakk, you know, and you know, the management, the band, and the producer did well in picking this song because no disrespect to the players and the musicians in the band, you know, this is in that groove, and I think the Rock Professors hit the nail on the head by saying that it's in the vein of, and Brad, you know, in the vein of previous albums. I can clearly see that this song could fit there, even with this guitar player. Now later on, he gets a little bit interesting with his tone and stuff like that because zip about that, but it's not foreign to my ear, guys. This song. So, and I like that. I like that because you know, we like to see that continuity. The slide, I've highlighted the slide too. That, you know, we can't discount how effective a slide guitar can get to a song and make that song effective. You know, I'm not going to pretend to know anything about Tommy either, guys. Like I said to you guys in the green room, I don't know much about this guy. So that's why I'm quite interested to hear what you guys have to say and going last on this, because especially as we continue with some of the songs. So I'm not going to pretend to know a lot about him, but he's adequate on that first track for me, knowing that he's a replacement for Richie Blackmore. Brad, does that make sense? So I'm not running away. I've given this 8 out of 10 too. Never a skip, but I'm very happy with it.
Awesome. So we're all on the same page, except I'm
Yep.
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So the second track is Lady Luck. That's the one, isn't it? Yeah, Lady Luck.
Yeah.
So this song's a little bit funkier. It's got a funkier feel to it. Some great bass playing from Glenn Hughes, and obviously the complementary drumming from Ian Pace is a lot of swing and funk to the way he plays. I mean, he's got a natural swing in his playing more so than rock anyway. So when he does play like this, it does have a really funk to it, like a natural funk to it, in my opinion. The guitar playing in this song is perfect. Like, Tommy really shines on this song. John Lord lays down some great chordal vamping. It's a catchy chorus. And again, it's another fantastic song on this record. I'm not going to say too much because I want to leave a little bit of spectrum for you guys to elaborate on this song and the other ones as well. I gave this an 8 out of 10. It's a great second track on the record. And so far, I think, you know, we always talk about the continuity of a record from the first song to the last song. It's a good second song, the way it comes in after Coming Home. So 8 out of 10 for me, never a skip. Zachy.
So I reckon this song has a little bit of a feel of some of the early Whitesnake, you know, the bluesy era. I could hear Coverdale, like he just sounds from that era. There's 5 songs on the album that were written by Coverdale and Tommy. So it's very much sort of their album. This song actually was written by a guy called Jeff Cook, who was in Tommy's previous band called Energy, and Coverdale just changed the lyrics to. They're very Cov lyrics, you know. It's a really cool song. It's got that cool slide solo in it. There's some really cool, typical pacey drum fills in it. It's a great song too. Never a skip. I'll give it a 7 out of 10.
Simon.
Yeah. I'm going to do this quite a lot, I think. But for me, as you say, I think one of the stars of the shows, I think Ian Pace has kind of changed his drumming style from previous versions of Deep Purple to this. I think he's playing differently on this than he does on previous things. I think fantastic, kind of, reasonably subtle alteration, but the way he plays on this is not the way he plays on Burn, and not the way he plays in previous Deep Purple albums. So I think there's something to note there of his adaptability and the way he holds down a lot of these tracks. Really held down by him in a really cool way, and I listening to it, I was thinking to myself, he's really doing a great job on this. Ian Pace, he's absolutely giving them the best and give the best framework from a drumming perspective. And so I think this is the first one. For me, this sounded a lot like a Bad Company song. I get a real kind of Paul Rodgers, Bad Company, almost kind of free, kind of that, because Kossoff and that, they was quite a bit more funky than had that funky edge to them. When they start moving into that area, then I was getting very much that strong vibe of that free Bad Company thing. And with the with the woes at the end is very Paul Rodgers, isn't it? It's never, that's not a bad thing, by the way, that's good. But it's and the solo, Bowling clearly has a kind of smoother, less aggressive style than Blackmore, which is a difference. And so again, 7.5 out of 10 from me. Never a skip. A good second track, and starting to point the way to where they might go a bit more into this album rather than the first track.
Correct.
Andrew.
Yeah, look, I agree with what the Rock Professor said there with Pace's drumming, but I'm going to sort of add this point too. While his technique certainly is a lot different, even his tone, the drumming tone on this album is just remarkable. It's completely different. So and I didn't have time to go and pursue or do some research on that, why it's remarkably different, but it doesn't sound like, in my ear anyway, like anything else. Now, whether that is because of his technique or the technology or the kits that he used, I don't know. But, that's maybe something that we can, continue to talk about a little bit later on. I hear Chris Cornell in the vocals here. When I heard it the second or third, I'm hearing, and I've got to agree with Zakk. I think Coverdale's influence on three generations now of vocalists must be huge, and to my ear, I'm hearing Chris Cornell, and I'm standing by that, Brad. I'm gonna stand by. I know you're a Chris Cornell fan. I was gonna say fanatic. And also, again, the Rock Professor hit the nail on the head too. The technique of Tommy is completely opposite to what Blackmore. Now that's not a bad thing. And Zakk, you're a guitar player. You know this album inside out. It must have been a remarkable thing for the rest of the musicians in this band themselves to have to get used to, because you're not getting that aggressive style, or that space between notes, that Blackmore would give sometimes, because sometimes, Tommy's going quite fast. He's playing triple, it's just a different technique. So I'll be interested to hear what you have to say, guys, on other tracks about that question. But look, I'm giving this an 8.5 out of 10. I love where it's going, Simon. I love where it's going. Brad.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned the drum thing, because on Stormbringer, I thought Pace's drumming sound on that, like his drums sound completely different to anything he's ever done before as well. So they're very cardboard boxy. They're very flat tone compared to the bigger sounds he used to have, especially Burn album and earlier. So obviously, I don't know, maybe, Zakk, do you know anything about the drums, how they recorded it, or nothing to elaborate on?
But I do know he was, on this album, Ian Pace is the co-producer with Martin Birch.
Ah!
And the actual production of this album is is unreal. I think it still stands up. It sounds really fat. The whole album.
Yeah. I agree, and I actually everything blends really nice. The bass, the guitars, the drums, they all fit really well. And like I said before, like with the keyboards, like John Lord, he's understated in a lot of the songs, but it works perfectly for the song. So it's I guess going away from the Machine Head vibe to this, that just requires what John Lord's playing. So, but so where we're up to? We're up to Getting Tighter. Okay, so I haven't written a lot about this song because I love the song. Right, I'm not going to give it, but I want to get your guys like. I want to hear what you guys have got to say about this song, but it's way miles away from what Deep Purple used to be sound wise. It's the first Glenn Hughes lead vocal track. Some really nice little funky guitar intro from Tommy Bolin. That alone is way different to anything Richie Blackmore would have ever played, 100%. The song has a real swing to it. Some really, I don't know if you guys have really listened to it, but there's some fantastic like layered guitar overdubs in this song. It's done so well. You really notice the Glenn Hughes' bass playing ability on this song. He's an amazing bass player as much as he is a vocalist, in my opinion. He really lays down a funky bass line when he has to. I love the little funky breakdown in the middle, and it definitely has, especially towards the middle section and the outro and stuff, a bit of a James Brown feel. That's what I'm picking up on. I can, the Getting Tighter, just like I could see James Brown dancing to it. It's just, I don't know. For that reason and that reason alone, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 and a great third track on the album. I think it's fantastic. Zakk?
This song is probably one of my favorite songs of all time. I've just always adored this song. I can imagine all the Deep Purple, fans just losing their minds when this song came on, especially the middle section. They're going to be, well, that's it. But it's so yeah.
Frisbee.
I wonder how the album would have done if it had come out under a different name. I guess sort of with the critics, it probably would have done well, but then they obviously would have lost all their look. Anyway, as a song, I think it's fantastic. I'll give it a 10 out of 10. I love everything on it. Is just Glenn singing is unbelievable. It's a great song.
Yeah,
I could go on and on about it, but, and yeah, the breakdown in the middle again. It's a song that it just makes me happy. It's just so cool.
Yeah,
10 out of 10.
Yeah.
Well done,
Cool.
Zakk.
I agree about the Glenn Hughes. I mean, you've got covered Alan Hughes as lead vocalists, and Glenn Hughes is no slouch on that front at all. I agree with you. He sings the lead on this fantastically well. I think that all that falsetto singing at the end as well. That's amazing. I think this is the kind of those twin guitar parts that Bolin laid down, those twin lead guitar parts he laid down, as kind of and a slide part as well. You can tell, that he's moving it in a different direction to what Blackmore would have done. I know Blackmore played slide on some things, but it would have been slide, but he wouldn't necessarily have had the twin guitar parts as well to do it. So I think there's definitely that kind of layering things up. And he plays a lot, doesn't he, Tommy Bolin, with himself, kind of thing. Harmony parts, and you often have the twin lead guitars, which is not something that Blackmore did at all. I mean, I agree with you about. I think if they possibly released it under stopped Deep Purple and done it as something else, it might have stood up on it, on its own merits a bit more than it does by comparison to other Deep Purple records. I like the funk. It's all good funky wise, and the funky part in the middle reminded me of Young Americans, David Bowie. I kind of that same vibe, which is kind of that James Brown thing as well, kind of filtered a bit. But that's really good. Like the funky keyboard stuff, and it's got sort of the rundown at the end reminded me a bit of Superstition as well. Stevie Wonder had a bit of Stevie Wonder in there as well, which is never a bad thing. It's so the guitar solo at the end, I gave this an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. That's a cool track, and pointing into more, I think, of where the album goes to than probably the previous 2 tracks. You get to track 3 and you start seeing what this album might actually be about. As you say, Zakk, a lot of Deep Purple fans are taking it off the turntable and whistling it out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad we're listening to it, a little bit later than when it was dropped, because I'm not surprised by it. But I am, if you know what I mean. I've got funk written here, underlined as well, and we've all pointed to that music category. Isn't it interesting how important or how influential funk music was? Because this is not the first time, guys, we've ranked albums that have had a funk element in it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's been 10 maybe tracks that have got that funky kind of element going through it. So and that sort of jolted me to because that was a popular category at the time, and so obviously these albums that we're ranking are going to be reflective, aren't they, Zakk, of the music categories that people are listening to that are current as well. You see, so I dig that.
That come out the same time as is it Johnny Winter that did Frankenstein?
Yeah.
That era. And Foghat and all those sort of bands, they were all having elements of that funk in their music, weren't they?
Yeah. And exactly. And an interesting interpretation by predominantly white guys, playing what originally started off as a black music category. It's an interpretation. How we said earlier, that the vocalist Coverdale influenced, 2 generations, maybe 3 generations of vocalists, vocal singers. I can imagine John Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers listening to this album or this song and being heavily influenced by it. And his playing as a example of a really shit hot modern funk guitar player. So again another groundbreaking moment, I think, for this band, or for this version of the band, Simon. That I think is valid. I think there's some valid connection there.
You can see, can't you? There's 2 things there. One is you can see why one of the reasons that funky guitar, for why he replaced Joe Walsh in the James Gang. Yeah. Because Joe Walsh has got that funky edge. I know funk number 49 and all of that is those funky things. So you can see that there's a join up there, and I think that also that kind of funk thing is very much Stevie Wonder, those Fulfilling His First Finale, those albums he made in the early 70s, with the synthesizer guys, Bob Margolis and I can't remember the other guy's name, Tonto's Expanding Headband guys. That's and that clearly massively influential. Superstition. I mean, I don't know how influential that. Jeff Beck's gone into, Blow by Blow and Wired and all those things. There's kind of more jazz. And so I can see that funk element filters into, doesn't it? David Bowie's going to do Young Americans and all that stuff. You can see that it's, that are you suggesting that white bands are recycling black music for their own ends, Mr. Walton? I can hardly believe you could say that in any way, shape, or form.
But the white band's versions of funk stands on its own merit too. It's an interpretation of it. just like the British Electric Blues, is an interpretation of the the Delta Blues. We know that story, but sorry.
So I was going to say, for your information, Frankenstein by Edgar Winter came out in 1972.
Yeah, around the same time. Yeah, a couple of, yeah.
4 years before him.
So listening to this album, Zakk, over the last week, it's not foreign to my ears, to hear these connections. But I'm glad that you made the point. If you were listening to this album, I can see how someone would be listening to this album with all these other previous albums under their belt and taking that home, having a couple of pints, and sort of maybe kicking the record player or something. I don't know. Brad, score.
Score.
I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10.
Beautiful. I mean, we're all on the same page, and Zachy gave it a 10. So I think we need to reassess our scores there, guys. Because he's the guest, and we all have to go back and have a listen to that.
Okay, 7.5.
No. You got to go back and listen and rank it higher. All right, Zachy's favourite one. So that's homework for you guys. All right. So we're up to the Dealer. It's called Dealer. The song's called Dealer. Now, This is a nice sludgy guitar riff. Tommy Bolin plays. It's got some fantastic slide guitar overdub parts over the top. But how good is David Coverdale's vocal on this track? It's just he's brooding. He owns this track. He demands attention, and that's what I love about his voice. We
can't see what you've written there. Nobody can see that.
He's got such a powerful, brooding, and slightly woody tone to his voice and everything he does. But he sings so powerfully in this song. He demands attention. Is my point. So.
We're all pointing to nondescript bits of paper.
I've read all your notes. I've read all your notes. I know what's going on. Catchy chorus. I love that little breakdown section in the song. And there's cool use of guitar effects in this song as well. Great guitar solo, and the outro piece of music is stellar. Look, I gave this song 9 out of 10, and a lot of that leans on David Coverdale's vocal. So interested to see what you guys say about this one. Zakk?
Yeah, I agree 100% about Cov's vocals. And just his delivery is unreal. You didn't mention the bridge sung by Tommy, which is so cool. Like he had if you've heard any of his, he sings a few songs on the James Gang's album. He's got this beautiful, soft, gentle voice that kind of lulls you in, and that's kind of a highlight. And I wish he sang a little bit more on the album, actually. Really cool solo, again, Ian Pace is just a demon on it. So I give this song an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I left that off. Hang on, I haven't got my notes are electronic, but I could turn around and I did have something about the Tommy Bolin section, but I left it out. So
does he also play bass on this as well? I'm sure I read somewhere. I made a note that he played bass on this as well.
I think it was this one.
Yeah,
but Zakk didn't know.
It depends, because on the official Wikipedia, only plays on Coming Home, and then I read on a few other things that he did play bass on, and I've listened to it a few times. He's a good bass player. He does play a bit like Glenn Hughes on that, so I don't know.
Doesn't matter. It's he can play bass like Glenn Hughes. Damn, that means you can't tell the difference. Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think it's got, again, great drumming from Ian Pace. I think, he's, for me, one of the stars of this album is him. But I thought the bass playing was really cool as well. And it reminded me, again, I got Free vibes off of this. To me, even the title "Dealer" sounds like a free song, the Hunter, or something like that. And I could see. I know they have two guitar parts, but that general kind of feel, and Coverdale has that kind of Paul Rodgers kind of vibe in his voice. I think there's a certain element of the two things. They come from the same place. That kind of bluesy soul thing, which is really great. And I like the two guitar parts as well. I think Bolin's certainly coming into his own by now, and and he's going the twin guitars are his thing, aren't they? Playing those two things together, harmony parts, really nice. And I gave this an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Anything invoking the name Free is good in my books.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Yeah, look, I agree with what you guys are saying. I've got here those muscular vocals, especially of Coverdale on this track, is just fantastic. And the lyrics, I love the lyrics too. It's just makes the song even more interesting. That the intro guitar tone, Brad and Zakk, is wow. This is again going to echo what the Rock Professor said. This is where Tommy's coming in. This is where he's coming in as the guitar player in my ear. And again, I made mention too earlier about the drum tone, and I've just got the drum tone here underlined. I didn't know that he was the drummer, was the co-producer, Zakk. So I was just thinking about this while you mentioned that. So he probably had another half a dozen mics maybe put around his kit. Who knows? Maybe he could have got away with that, being the one of the co-producers, or I don't know, but definitely something going on there. I've given this an 8.5 out of 10, and I'm starting to get attached and interested in what Tommy is doing as a guitar player, Brad.
Yeah, Tommy holds his own.
I'm just double checking. He's not a co-producer. He worked on the final mix, which is kind of the same thing.
Okay.
So the final mix was done by Ian Pace and Martin Birch, which is basically what a producer does, the final mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're up to "I Need Love," and then we'll show some photos there, Andrew, after this song.
Yeah, no problem, bro. Just give me a yell when you're ready.
Yeah, because this is the last song of side one. So, in the cohesiveness of an album, it's good to point out that this is the last song for side one. So it's a great last song for side one, I think. It's got a really cool guitar riff at the opening of the song. There's some really nice guitar tracking on this song, on this recording. Tommy Bolin really knows how to track guitars really well. I think he's a bit of an expert at that, as this record sort of shows. Another great drum feel from Ian Pace. Another very enthusiastic vocal from David Coverdale. He's enthusiastic in this one. He needs love. He's telling you he needs it. Catchy chorus. I need love.
What do you need, David? Yes. Tell us again.
This song, in my opinion, lyrically is leaning a little bit more into the Whitesnake era of his vocal writing and lyric writing. He gets a little bit cheeky and a little bit more sexual as music progresses in Whitesnake. So I think this is one thing I did think about, and I'll just say it now before I finish my ranking, is could this have been a Whitesnake album? I don't know, maybe, possibly, potentially, because it's leaning more, like Zakk said, to the early era of Coverdale, Whitesnake, that sort of thing. But I guess it was a Deep Purple record, so that maybe they hadn't thought about that at that point. But just something to think about there. The little breakdown section, you can definitely hear the band's moving more in that soulful, funky direction. The guitar solo section, you can hear Tommy Bolin really mixing that up. He's squanking notes and he's parts. It sounds like, to me, he's playing on the middle position of his Fender Strat, which is something that a lot of players don't really go to. The outro vocals are reminiscent of a soul song without a doubt. And Tommy Bolin, you know, he plays the outro piece, especially what he's playing on guitar, very similar to what he does in on Billy Cobham's record in a lot of the tracks there. So definitely Tommy Bolin's stamp is on the album by this point, 100%. I gave this song 9 out of 10. It's never a skip. Zakk.
So for me, I would probably rank this the lowest song on the album. Maybe it's the feel of it or something. Coverdale's vocals are unbelievable on this, and you're right, it's leaning into the Whitesnake thing where I think on every album he had a song title with the word love in it. So that he's desperately in need of love all the time, isn't he? The highlight for me is the middle section in this song. It's the breakdown. It's cool as. But I think Brad said most of the stuff I want to say about this, really. So I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10.
Cool.
Yeah, I agree. For me, again, there's lots of cool stuff. Again, for me, that simple soul funk drum part that Ian Pace does in this, you know, that it does not like he normally plays on previous, but you know, it's just fantastic, and it gives it such a swing and such that funky feel that you know, everybody else can play over the top. Question, Brad, you mentioned that Tommy Bone is playing a Strat on this. I mean, clearly his, you know, Joe Bonamassa has got his old Les Paul. Did he not play? Is this not a Les Paul? This is a Strat on here.
I'm pretty sure he played a Strat a lot on Deep Purple. In Deep Purple.
Yeah, it's a very Stratty album.
I think the conscious effort for Tommy on this was to keep that Stratty tone going that Richie had. But 100%.
Yes. Do you think that was something of a mistake in retrospect? Kind of thing. It actually should have played with his Les Paul and gone with more, you know, what he felt. Because it's different anyway, so you might as well go a bit more different rather than. I can understand.
There have been more records out the window again.
Yes.
Oh my God! It's a Les Paul.
And it's a Les Paul. Yes, the last straw. Yes.
But
I don't know. So, I agree with you, Zakk. I think that funky middle eight in the middle is just great, isn't it? The breakdown bits that they do, and again using the organ as a kind of rhythm instrument in a way. Not, you know, it's not out in the mix. John Lord is just kind of in there filling out the sound and, you know, in the background kind of thing in a completely different way to the way he's done in the past. And I think that's, you know, that gives it plenty of body. And also the synth part as well near the end as well. And I agree with you about the two guitar parts. That twin, you know, the two parts at the end is really great as well. And clearly that's one of Bolin's signature things, isn't it, to do that kind of thing. And I think that's really good. I gave this a 7.5 out of 10. Never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, I'm not going to repeat what you guys have said, but I'm just going to focus on what the rock professor said here on my notes. You know, you've got the interesting keyboards going on, and it's certainly not been pushed through like we would expect it would to be normally on a Deep Purple album. I like it. I like the fact that it's just hanging around there like a you know, like some mist or something like that. I was really confused when I heard this song the first couple of times, guys, because the guitar tone was really thin tone. And I didn't know whether I liked it, Brad. I didn't know. So I did some research. Yes, it was a Stratocaster, so I'm going to back up on there. But I'm going to jump in the camp here and say and back the rock professor up. I think, on hindsight, they should have gone with a Les Paul. I think, Zakk, I'm sorry, album's out the window. But I think it would have given them the edge maybe this album could have done with, that may have inspired the band to do something a little bit more. I think they were trapped by the ghost of Blackmore. Blackmore was haunting him, but had haunted this album, I think. Then I went and listened to this song again, Brad, a couple of times, and then I'm trying to work out, what they're trying to do with this. So they don't want to make it too crazy or too bitter or too weird. Can I say this? Am I allowed to say? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, a safe song to end a side. Nothing remarkable. Just so because of that, I'm giving it a 7 out of 10. But I'm not being critical of it, if that because there's something else that we're going to talk about that could be. But I'm just saying that it's just left me with a lot of questions, guys. That of what ifs. Brad.
No, that's fair enough. I think it's a good time to show some photos, Andrew. We'll quickly show some photos and set a bit of a scene, since we can't sort of play.
I'll be back in a minute while you do that, guys. Hold on, I've just got to deal with something. Hold on.
No problem.
One thing I'll say is that Tommy Boland didn't use Marshalls; he used hi-hats.
Yeah.
Hence that tone as well.
Yeah, it's definitely it's a different Strat tone to Richie's, and Richie was a far more aggressive tone in my opinion.
Yeah.
But there's a fullness to his tone as well, so maybe he did use a Les Paul for some tracking. I don't know, but
yeah, that would be interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, the photo segment today is brought to you by our channel sponsor, Mr. Glenn's Pickups, and also by the Clickbait
Nice.
of Brad and Elvis Cook.
Elvis is the clickbait, mate, not me.
So that's the album cover. Can I ask a question, Brad, before you start? I already said in my intro, I was intrigued by this album cover.
Yeah.
You guys got some thoughts on it?
Well, definitely.
I remember holding the actual record. Sorry.
No, you're right. Go for it, Zakk.
I remember holding the actual record as a kid. It was this big white record cover, and it was quite fetching. So it looked really cool, and obviously, and the back cover as well. And I loved it. I love the style of it.
Yeah, I think the album cover sets a mood. It's looking at it, and it's a cheeky, almost Whitesnake name album. Like when you think about it, Whitesnake, their album titles, Slide It In and all that. Like Come Taste the Band, it's starting to get into that cheeky territory for Coverdale, I think. And but I'm a red wine drinker too, so I'm assuming that's red wine, and it's warm. It's a comfort look to the album, I think.
It's not blood. It's not blood. It's wine.
Yeah.
No, it's not an Aussie album.
That's the Aussie glass. There it is. There, empty.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like how the front's full and the back's empty. I thought that was really cool. I love that. Yeah, it's very cool. So yeah, I like the album cover. So some of these photos are obviously with Tommy on stage. Tommy's the guitarist on the right, if you're not sure who he is. On the left is Glenn Hughes, and in the middle, David Coverdale, looking funky with those white heeled shoes on and flares. Very cool. That's a great picture. Promo. So obviously, I don't know, this might have come out around the time as promo. So that's John Lord there to the left, Tommy Boland in the middle is Coverdale. You've got Glenn Hughes and then Ian Pace. With the old style writing the font.
Moustache, didn't he?
Yeah, I know, he's a badass.
The best moustache in 70s rock.
I reckon he inspired a lot of cricketers in the 70s as well, 100%.
Rod
Merv
Marsh,
Hughes.
Dennis Lilly, Merv Hughes. Yeah.
There's just a shot of them. They're obviously on tour or something, like, having fun, doing their thing, doing their thing. So that's a cool picture. That's
Do you think
a very
Sorry,
hairy
Brad,
photo. It's a very hairy photo, that one.
Fantastic. I was just listening to your thing about the. I mean, I think the title "Come Taste the Band." I mean, I sort of interpreted it as being, this is a new beginning. Come and check it out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You disagreeing, Mr. Walton? Are you not? You are, of course, wrong, because I am the rock professor and I'm always right. That's in all the books.
Coverdale is a naughty man.
It still is.
Is he really?
Yes, that's Tommy Boland there. I thought that was a pretty cool photo to highlight him. That's a pretty cool picture. Another stage shot. I love the whole look of this era of Deep Purple. I love it. They just got something really very cool. The clothing, I mean, they all had such great hair too. Really, look at Tommy's hair there.
Hair envy.
And then a heavier set David Coverdale there, which I was quite. So obviously been drinking a few pints, yeah. So
Didn't he say that when he joined Deep Purple, he had to lose weight when he joined Deep Purple? I'm sure that when we would talk about Burn, right, that came up as a thing. Yeah, just true, isn't it?
I thought that was a great picture, and that just sets a bit of a mood for people watching, and they get the era. So very cool pictures there. Very cool.
Thank you, Brad, and thank you, Elvis, for sponsoring this week's
clickbait section. Yes.
Don't worry, Andrew. We're gonna get you soon with the clickbait. We've got to get you, mate. We're gonna have to set it up. I don't know how we're gonna break in to the StreamYard thing, and we need to, somehow get the password, and we're going to set up the clickbait. I'm going to
golden password
head on a rock star. So you're out there playing a Les Paul. I'll Photoshop your face on pages. 1935, she's got the cigarette lighter or something like that.
Hottie's saying she's got hashtag more clickbait.
I think, Brad. I think you should superimpose Andrew's face on that dusty hill. No one will ever know the difference.
I'm going to do it. I'm not good at that stuff, but I'll work it out for sure. Oh, good. I can see it now. All right. You are a closet bass player, Andrew. So let's be true. You are Dusty, all right. So we'll come to the next track, which is the first track of side 2. I Need Love. Look, it's a cool guitar riff to open the song.
Hang on, Brad. We've just done I Need Love. That's the last track on side 1. We're now on to Drifter. That's right.
Thanks for to go forwards. Yeah, thanks for that.
Steady now. I'll lose my place.
They got sidetracked by the clickbait. That's what. What can I say? Drifter. Yeah, it's another sludgy rock riff. It's covered with some slide overdubs, which is very cool. John Lord, his organ work on this is fantastic. Some really cool drumming, especially in the verses from Ian Pace. And again, Coverdale demands attention and his vocal. Vocally fantastic. Tommy Boland by this stage has really left his signature guitar style all over this album by this point. And this song in particular really shows how wonderful he his playing is. I think his feel in particular. Lovely breakdown little section, slide playing from Tommy. It's a great song, great opener for side 2, and I gave it 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Zakk.
Yeah. Again, what I had for this was the drumming, or like Ian Pace's little fills in between the verses, and really draws you in. I kind of pair this song with The Dealer and maybe Lady Luck. They're kind of all that kind of I guess sludgy is the word. Like it's a really cool track. Covered Up, Shining again. I'll give this a 7 out of 10.
Simon.
Yeah, I think it's a really good opening track to side 2. I think it's me, I'm all about programming and about especially album programming. So I look at things in 5-song chunks and things. So I think that kind of heavier guitar riff, is kind of like a bit more redolent of what they used to do, and you kind of keep it strong for the beginning of side 2. Strong opening track. Again, the organ is kind of not that kind of equal thing, and if he's playing with Blackmore, John Lord would be doing an equal thing with Richie on this, but it's much more used as a rhythm instrument on this track, like some of the other ones. And they speed up in the last part, which is fun to keeping the energy levels up. I gave this an 8 out of 10. Never a skip. Good opener.
Yeah, I agree with you, Simon, and I've given a really good mark or a ranking for an album just because of a 30-second intro on a song, and I've discussed that with you guys, and I really like the riff and that tone that we're getting on this song, Simon. It's really good. It's different from the previous song too. So again, I don't know anything about Tommy, but I don't know what effects, what he used when you shot out to go and grab that gin that you have.
An early morning gin.
Yeah. To go and top up your gin. Zakk reminded us of the fact that he played with high watt amps as opposed to Marshalls. So that was a bit of a revelation for me in my mind now. So I'm not familiar with high watt amps at all. So he's clearly doing something. I've given this song big. Yeah, and they don't have. Well, they didn't for a long time have master volume, so you had to play them loud, didn't you? So, but because of this intro, guys, I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. I think it's I think it's good. I like it. I like it.
I had a high watt 100 watt for a while. Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Go on, Zakk.
It's got a great breakdown too. This song has a great
Yeah. I had a high watt 100 watt for a bit, and massively. It's basically a massively clean sounding amp. I mean, it's huge. I mean, could I say, Zakk, unplayable in any bar in the UK. I mean, you could have it on about a half. You can turn it up to 5. You just have the back wall out of any pub in the UK. Hunter's pinned to the back thing. So I sold it and bought a 30 watt amp instead. Much more in keeping with what I could do. But yeah, it was fantastic. Crazy loud but crazy clean as well. With a Strat into it, it didn't break up. Even if you turned it up to 8, it was just
that's
massively
that
sparkly.
Pete Townsend tone.
Yeah. So it was an amazing amp. But as I say, it just if I was playing Wembley Stadium, fine. But sadly, I never was. So small pubs, no, it's not happening really. And it was bloody heavy. So I had to go.
Yeah. Oh, most 100-watt amps are heavy these days. I think the older I get, they seem to be very heavy. So I was going to the gym these days. But yeah, so we're up to, what are we to, Love Child? So have I got it right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to muck it up. We've come this far. We've got pretty close. So Love Child, look, starts off with a guitar riff that's reminiscent of an old school Deep Purple song. I can't pick what it is, but there's similarities there. When the whole band comes in playing the same riff, it sounds pretty mighty. It's very sludgy sort of verses, and Coverdale's vocal is over the top. It sounds fantastic.
Yes.
He sings on every song fantastically, but there's so much going on vocally here with him. I think I'm not sure if I can call him an underrated singer or overrated. I don't know, but this song he's very good. Yeah, it's like when you talk about Coverdale, I always think of Mistreated and things like that for this era of Deep Purple. But this song in particular, I don't know whether he gets enough credit for. So well done, David Coverdale, when you're watching this back. So there you go. Bass, on the drums, he's amazing. The breakdown section is very sexy. I'll put that there. It's very cool. And it's the first bit of John Lord playing some lead guitar part, or lead organ or keyboard parts. I'm not sure what keyboard it is. Is it a Moog or what? I don't know. You guys might know better than me. But fantastic song. I gave it 8 out of 10, and it's never a skip. Zakk.
Yeah, this is like a classic Coverdale song. I remember the first time I heard this song was the last concert in Japan version, and you should hear Car's vocals on that. It's just insane. So I had the notes about this. Is we really start to hear John Lord's contribution. He does a really cool solo, and I love this song. The riff is so cool. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Very Carve again, leaning towards what he would do later in Whitesnake too. I think.
Yeah,
wanting a love child.
Yes.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny.
Mummy didn't love him enough, did she?
Yeah. I'm slightly more equivocal about David Coverdale as a vocalist. I think sometimes he kind of slips into sort of parody thing with that sort of voice. My name is David Coverdale.
Thank you for your tips.
Yes.
I'm from the north, but I talk like Richard Burton.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I'm from. Where is he from? He's from Yorkshire. It's
Yorkshire.
It's really funny, but he did. Yes. It's I don't know if you know Guy Pratt, who's the bass player in Pink Floyd. He worked with David Coverdale. Yeah. He does a fantastic impersonation of David Coverdale from, as he describes it, Witter Snarkay. That's right. He's from Redcar. That's right. My name is David Coverdale.
Yes.
And this is my Whitesnake.
Yes. You see. Yes. Absolutely. You just can't. Yes. I can't bring myself not to laugh in some kind of funny way about it, but. I've got the singing as being strident on this. It's very Coverdale strident singing, a bit like that speaking voice, really. But,
yes.
Yeah. It makes me smile, which is no bad thing. But, I agree with you about the synth solo is John Lord's first chance to really get to the fore, isn't it? We've got 7 tracks in before he's allowed off the leash a bit to do something, and just at the end you get a bit of his overdriven organ sound, harking back to the to that era when he put it through the Marshalls and cranked it up and stuff. So that was good. I gave this a 7.5 out of 10. Never a skip.
Yeah, I've given it an 8 out of 10 too. And I've underlined its standout in vocals. Brad's already discussed that and the reasons why. And all my other co-hosts have mentioned this is where we say thank the Lord for John Lord, because he's doing something finally on this track And one other point, ladies and gentlemen, Love Child, it's not the Supremes version. It's not another cover version of, the Supremes Love Child.
This is David Coverdale's Love Child. That's a different thing.
My White Snake.
Oh my God.
Love Child.
Goodness.
Yeah, I think the Love Child's a little bit closer to home for Coverdale, isn't it?
Careful now.
All right.
Can we bring it back on the tracks, or should we keep going on?
Yes.
Look, hold on. So I was lucky to be schooled in rock and roll by a couple of uncles and friends of mine who had older brothers. And it was really interesting because remember when 1987 came out and you had all these yuppies out there getting stiffies because of White Snake's album,
Steady now.
Damn the show, Andrew.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Getting excited.
Again.
And me and a couple of mates, this is nothing new. We knew White Snake, and then all of a sudden, remember he started doing those videos with his girlfriend or wife at the time, and they're rolling all over the car and stuff like that, and and I remember rolling my eyes with my mates, going, "That's just typical Cavadar. It's just wasn't surprised."
Yes, I think Coverdale is a very naughty man. Let's just leave it at that.
I think he probably is.
It's a great album, though. It's a great 1987. It's a great album.
Yeah, it's a killer album. Fantastic. So we are up to this time around. This is a lovely little piano arrangement by John Lord, I think, and the song features Glenn Hughes on lead vocals. Despite what he may have been going through, he sounds fantastic on this. I think it's very much just John Lord and Glenn Hughes on this track. I'm not sure if there's too many other people playing on this song. It's a great atmospheric sort of song, and it leads into the next track, which is O to G. Glenn Hughes has got a very angelic side to his voice when he sings soft, and he sings beautifully in this. I won't lie, back in the day when I first got this record, I actually probably used to skip this because I wanted to hear Burn and I wanted to hear Stormbringer and whatnot. But, as we get older and you start to get more sensitive and you appreciate different styles of music. So for now, I ranked this twice and I gave it a 7 out of 10. It's a beautiful piece. But I can't give it an 8 because of the other 8s I've ranked. So 7 out of 10. And it segues into O to G, which is the next song, which I'll leave that ranking for when everyone's given their sort of rankings. Or you want me to do O to G as well?
Yeah, do it. Yeah, because mine's... Yeah. Okay. Is that okay, bro? Yeah.
Yeah, I've done it as one as well. So
yeah.
So if it was like one piece, if you're considering it like one piece, for O to G, it's a great riff. Some very tasty playing from Tommy Bolin throughout this song. The guitar overdubs are wonderful. Some really beautiful laid guitar parts. The whole band sang great, especially Ian Pace. The song does sound like a jam, but it's definitely structured. The breakdown section around 2 minutes indicates that pretty much perfectly, that it is structured. And I love the ending. If I have to join them together, I'd give it a 9 out of 10 because I gave O to G 10 out of 10. So I'll give it 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip for me. Zakk.
I don't know if I can. Do you guys know, the Kevin Shirley remix of the album? and these tracks were separated on the track listing. Just it's kind of weird because you're so used to hearing those toms come in. But anyway, so this time around, I've always loved it. I think it's just incredible. John Lord's chording in it, and it's one of my favourite Glenn Hughes vocals of all time. He's trying to channel Stevie Wonder a bit, but I actually used to. I'm kind of the opposite of Brad. I used to play this over and over when I was a kid. I'm going to give it like a 10 out of 10 because it just takes me to a place, and it's just incredible. Ode to G. As a kid, I actually used to skip it, and I've only grown to love it. I guess over the long great intro solo by John Lord, and then you get to see Tommy doing his call and answer lead playing, and I'll give that an 8 out of 10. So adding both of them, it becomes a 9 out of 10.
Simon.
Well, I think these two tracks they are as far away from classic Deep Purple as that you can get, really. I think the first half, the kind of jazzy, this time around, a jazzy piano opening, and that great singing from Glenn Hughes. I think that really shows his vocal talents off to best effect. Just singing on a ballad, amazing stuff. It kept reminding me of something, and I can't think what it is. So I'm at loss as to. So I'm come to the conclusion that actually is pretty unique, but in terms of his vocal style.
I think I might be able to help you.
Oh well, all right. Oh no, powder dry, Mr. Walton, powder dry. So I think it's fantastic singing. I like the fact the piano and the synth melody underneath, kind of completely different vibe, completely different. Than anything that they've done in the past. Certainly, there's no comparison with any other Deep Purple song that I can think of that does this sort of thing. So fantastic. And the second bit reminded me of that, and to me is a kind of the Ode to G bit, which is a tribute to George Gershwin. By the way, I discovered the G is George Gershwin, but reminded me quite a lot of what he would have done with on Spectrum. It's a bit more quite fusion playing. Reminded me a bit of Jeff Beck, Blow by Blow, and Wired, those early 70s fusion albums with those lots of soloing over the top of a sort of jazzy rock kind of changes underneath, and again those 2-part guitars at the end that have become classic Tommy Boland over the course of this record. But I think, well, it is, isn't it? You sort of recognise it as a style and as a thing for the record, is those twin guitars, things that he does. So I gave it an 8 out of 10 combined. Great track, really enjoyed it. As I say, because it's so different. And Glenn Hughes, great singing as well. Andrew.
Hey Hugh. Hey John ZD351. Good to see you guys.
Yes.
Okay, guys. So. Simon, when I was listening to this, I heard Dream Theater, some parts of Dream Theater.
Oh, right.
So progress. So I think this is an attempt, maybe, or there's some. And you said fusion. I think I think they're trying to do some progressive prog rock stuff. I think going on here, and it just doesn't work for me, guys. It doesn't work. I get what you're saying, guys, about the vocals, the delicacy of the vocals, which is always great. We love hearing rockers rock it out like Coverdale, and then when you get Glenn Hughes sing delicately, we love that. We have to have that, don't we? We've got to have that comparison. The rock professor likes to talk about it and call it contrasts, and we're getting that with the vocalists on this album. But I don't get it, guys. I always skipped it. It's always going to be probably a skip going forward. I've ranked it 5 out of 10. It's just missing. I don't know what it is.
Time out.
Yeah. I will. I just want to defend myself a little bit before I piss off. I don't get what they were trying to do, and so I'm going to add a theory here, guys. I think this song may have contributed to the band breaking up.
That's it. Whoa! Wow.
Well,
you're definitely timed out.
As far as musical directions go, I think this could be. I don't know. You know how we like to come up with theories on this bloody channel.
All right, in the naughty corner.
Yes,
Go.
we do.
Okay.
We haven't timed him out for a while, so that
Yeah, I know.
So we're on to the last track. You can come back, Andrew. Yeah.
Thanks. Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa.
Yes.
Listen, if you give that sort of ranking to this last track,
No. I promise I haven't.
Ban.
I promise. I'll be back next week.
So we're up to the last song on the album, and the album overall is very different for a Deep Purple sort of record. We've established that. But this track, Keep On Moving, sort of leans a little bit more to the Burn era, the Burn album for me. I could have imagined this being on Burn, this album, this song. So from the very first like bass guitar riff, you know you're kind of in for a treat with this one. I think there's some lovely chords from John Lord to set the mood, the vamping stuff he does. So it's a beautiful chord progression, really moving. It's touching, and the vocals coming in around the 1 minute mark, which is not in this day and age. That's a big no, but
sure,
they set a mood for the first minute, and the vocals come in, and it's a fantastic vocal delivery from Glenn Hughes, and this is one of my favorite Glenn Hughes vocals from this period of time. It really does sound amazing. Tommy Bolin just adding those little vamping bits of guitar and his laid guitar parts through the song, and just really they add wonderful color to the song perfectly. The song takes off at about 2 minute mark. Then the bridge section of the song, it still gives me goosebumps every time I hear it. We hear an amazing solo from John Lord. That's his best on the whole album, obviously. I think he's only, at this point, this is his second one. And I have to say, reminiscence of something like what he would have done on In Rock album or that Fireball sort of era. That's what I'm hearing from John Lord on this track. Where Coverdale comes in and sings real thick and throaty. That sounds fantastic. And it just blows me away how he just has that effect when he does that. It's a long song, around that 4 minute 30 mark. We hear Tommy Bolin solo. It's absolutely brilliant. There's 2 lead guitar lines that are layered. There's some really tasty licks and really bluesy feel. And me being a blues guy, that's always gonna, get the goosebumps going for me. It's a great song and a great way to end the album. And I gave it a 100 out of 10. I love it. It's the best song on the album.
Yep.
Yeah. Zakk.
I just want to briefly go back to what Andrew said about this time around contributing to the breakup of Deep Purple. And in a way, you're right, because live, I don't know if you've ever heard any live versions of it, but it used to drive Coverdale nuts because Glenn was going through this period of long extended just screaming and doing his best Stevie Wonder impersonations, and it drove the rest of the band nuts. It really did. So yeah, that song did contribute. Anyway. So I think this is the best song on the album for me.
Yep.
It's a 10 out of 10. It's just it's just incredible. And Brad, what you said about Burn, this song was actually written for during the Burn sessions. So you're right that it would have fitted on it. So it was actually left off the Burn album, which is incredible, I think. But
yeah, that makes sense.
Make this album even better. It's just got everything, and it's just incredible. And those harmonies here in the beginning, there's also Tommy Bolin singing in there as well. So, and my other note was that you get to hear the old John Lord swirling solo. It brings a smile to your face, and it's a 10 out of 10 for me, that one.
Beautiful. I think so.
Yeah.
Simon.
It's interesting, isn't it? The theory that you put your weakest song as the second last song on an album, which is clearly Andrew's view, is that the second last is the weaker song on the album. Certainly the most different, and I think whether you think it's weak or not, I think it's is the most different thing on the album, and therefore putting it there is the classic place to put it. And then you follow it up with one of your stronger songs, the kind of thing. Although I did feel this was a bit different as well. I sort of had I thought it was a vocal duet between Coverdale and Hughes, but you guys are not saying that. You're saying it's more like Tommy Bolin and Glenn Hughes. Whatever it is.
I think only on the album, but live it was very much Coverdale and Hughes.
Right, they do more together. Okay, yeah. But I like the fact that it's a vocal duet as well. I think that was the contrast between the two voices is really good. And
yes.
Another
point you stole off me.
See, you had the chance to go before me, and you didn't want to do it. Don't be surprised if I've got everything sorted out. I'll talk about Ian Pace's drums. I think for me, Ian Pace, again, star of the show, just laying down that groove over which people can play. I think it's underestimated. I think he's underestimated as what a great drummer he is, and I think this album proves what a great drummer he is and how he can do different things with different bands, and is very kind of up on this band needs something different doing to it. So my hat is off to Ian Pace. I think the most on this record. I like the overdriven organ. At last, we get a bit of a classic John Lord in the middle. Hooray! Yeah. Us old Deep Purple fans, still craving the old stuff. But the guitar solos, getting the two parts, the Tommy Bolin 2-part stuff was really cool. One follows the other kind of thing, and that kind of it's really great, really good. I gave this 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip, Mr. Walton.
Yeah. Well, certainly John Lord is the secret sauce on this album, on this track, and everybody, all my co-hosts have acknowledged that. I need to ask Zakk a question. So, who's playing bass on this? I've always, for years, Zakk, always assumed it was.
It's Glenn.
Glenn. Yeah. So it is Glenn playing bass on this track. Okay, right, yeah. Good, because I've got a note here. So we all love John Paul Jones, don't we? And we talk about John Paul Jones's contribution as a bass player and a musician with that instrument in that band. And Brad touched upon it when he was talking about it. The bass tone, the way that the bass was playing. Its contribution to this song at the intro, it's it'll give John Paul Jones, a run for his money. Hughes is a great bass player, and like I said to you guys before, I because of that I'd give this song a 10 out of 10. Just for that, Zakk. It can only be 30 seconds of a song for me, and like I'm the fish in the deep blue sea, and you've hooked me. You probably take more than a couple of lines to get me though, but the tone, Brad, the guitar tone. Yeah. You've mentioned the guitar tone, and also the way that Tommy is playing in himself, as opposed to being, I think, a fill-in guitar player. You're right, Rock Professor. They've left the best song for last, in my opinion. It's the best song. Because it's got all the ingredients that we love. It's got everything that we got a hint of Zakk in the first track, and these British guys are especially clever about making sure, back then anyway, and the Rock Professor talks about this, even if it's just an album, they still love to tell stories with an album. They still want to tell a story, even though it's not a concept album, it's just a rock and roll album, isn't it, Brad? But they still want to make sure, they're clever enough to make sure that there's a opening chapter and, the concluding chapter. I forget the proper names of, what is it? Prelude?
What? Preface.
And an indexed.
Prologue.
And an index. Prologue, whatever. Beginning
epilogue,
and an end.
Not epilogue. Prologue and that's right.
Yeah, that's it. A P and an E. A P and an E.
P and an E.
And Brad, we get that with this song. So and when I listen to this, but that's it, brother.
Thank you, Zakk.
Okay, bookends.
That's it.
So let me get to my bloody point so I can shut up.
He gets quite sweary, doesn't he, after 3 shows?
when I listen to this song, in the course of the week, it's like I get the album now, Brad. So that 5 that I gave before and some of these other scores, in the context of the album, it's a great album, and it's remarkable how one song can do that for you, Simon. Can just pull all those threads together, and you get something that you can wear out to the, to a dinner party. You get that with the song. Brad scored the song.
Hey, good work.
Well done. Well, that's it, guys. Well, we did under 2 hours with 4 people. That's pretty damn good.
Excellent. Yeah. That's exactly what we need to do. Yeah. So, closing remarks, Mr. Cook.
I think we did pretty well. I think we ranked pretty well. There was only one little time out there, which I didn't expect. So yes, I really enjoyed doing this album, Zakk. So thanks for bringing this one to the, to our attention, and thank you for joining us with it. I really enjoyed your analysis of these songs, and of course, I go away and reassess everything when I listen to these albums again every time we do this, and now I'm going to hear Zakk's voice in my head saying he's got your tone. And, no, I just know. But fantastic. Really enjoyed.
I'll just add that there was an interview with maybe it's in that documentary, with John Lloyd saying, and what a lot of people say is, maybe it's not a great Deep Purple album, but it's a damn good rock album. I think that's what John, in retrospect, him listening back to it, going, wow, this is actually a really good album.
Yeah. I agree. I think there's a few things I'd say about it. First of all, I think it's really important for this show that we do albums like this. It's easy to do Machine Head, because it's a classic and all of that. But actually, to start to examine lesser known records from people's, catalogs, I think is really important. So I'd like to say thanks, Zakk, because I haven't listened to this album for a long time. It just kind of sits there in the background, really. So I think it's really important that we go back and we
re-examine. Did you change your opinion of it?
I did actually. Yeah,
In
it went up
retrospect.
for sure. Yeah. From 1975. But no, absolutely. I think it's a really interesting record and has lots to recommend it. I think that it,
Yeah.
that, and I think we proved it. It doesn't quite have those classic riff songs. It doesn't quite have a Smoke on the Water or a, Child in Time or whatever. But that doesn't make it not a good record. It's still a good record. It
Yeah.
still has a character. It still has a feel and a vibe of its own. Tommy Bolin brings a different thing to it, and I think brings his own thing to it, and they fit it into the album, into the band, and I think it's that it's worthy of going and have a listen to, to check it out and see what you think. But because it's not like the classic Deep Purple things, doesn't mean it doesn't have some merit, and doesn't mean it doesn't have some really great playing and really good songs, and absolutely. So I'm really pleased that we've done this, in a way more than anything else, because it's the lesser known one, and having that is I think is really cool for us. I mean, last week we did Keith Hartley band, which is like pretty unknown, but again, I like doing that sort of thing because it's because not everybody may have heard it, not everybody, or people may have heard it a long time ago, and hopefully if we can encourage a few people to go back and re-examine it and re-listen to it, then that's really cool. So Zakk, thanks for bringing that. It's been really great fun to listen to it this week. Really good.
Awesome. Before we go, like I said, guys, I don't know anything about Tommy. So can you recommend, if you guys know of anything off the top of your head, where would you send somebody to go and check out more of Tommy's music from a guitar player's perspective? Zakk, Brad, and Rock Professor. Have you got any suggestions?
So he did 2 James Gang albums, Miami and
Bang.
Is it James Gang Rides Again? Or
no, Bang.
There was a retrospective of his put out, I think in the 90s, called Whips and Roses, if I have that correct. I'm not sure if it's on Spotify, but that's a really cool, because he did some cool solo albums. Teaser, and I can't remember the other one off my head, but and of course the Spectrum album he did with Billy Cobham. I can check it quickly on the web now, but hopefully they're on Spotify for people. I'm sure they'd be on YouTube.
Yeah, there's Teaser, Alive on Long Island, Whips and Roses. Yeah, yep. And Zephyr, which is the first band I understand. Okay, no, there's a lot of stuff here. Thank you. I'm going to go and freak out on Tommy.
Yeah, I would say the 2 James Gang albums and Billy Cobham's Spectrum. Billy Cobham's Spectrum is a great record. Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Good.
Well, thanks, guys. I really enjoyed that. It was fun. Nice little Sunday afternoon get together. And talking music. And thanks, Zakk, for joining us again. And
fantastic, Zakk.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Analysis of the songs. And I don't know what we've got coming up, but for the next one, but we'd love to have you back sometime, Zakk. We don't want to drag you in kicking and screaming, but you've got some free time and there's another album that you can think of, doesn't have to be now, but the next couple of days or weeks or whatever, just let us know. We'd love to have you back.
Yeah. You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. You can come back and hang out with us, but also use us too for any musical projects as well that you've got coming up. Next Sunday, we're live with another guest host, ladies and gentlemen. He's in the chat. Hugh's going to join us, and we're going to be deep diving another classic rock album, Band of Gypsies. So buckle up for that one. Go and listen to that. Do your homework. Join us next week. That's going to be a cracker.
Looking forward to that.
Are you here? Hugh, are you here? If you are, because...
I think he is,
Okay. You've watched a lot of these shows. Because you are our guest, we'll get you to go first, if that's okay. If you want to go first, just confirm that with us, and then me, Brad, and the Rock Professor will scrap out what order we go in after you.
Yeah. All right.
Fantastic.
We're done.
All right, cool. Shall I say goodbye? I'll say goodbye to everyone in the chat. Who's things, because that's fantastic. So we should say thanks to Tim Thomas, Digital Guitars UK, Holly Lewis, of course. Holly, well done. Fantastic show the other day with Andrew. Really good. And thanks for the song. We've had Hugh Caldwell, of course, Nelson Rodriguez. We've had John ZD351, Ellen Toll. Hi, Ellen. Hope you're good. Rolling down to the bottom quickly. We've had somebody else besides John as well. We had John and Hugh. Yeah. Hopefully I've got everybody. So thanks all for watching. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for Band of Gypsies. Looking forward to that.
Cool.
Take care all. Stay safe and well. Bye.
Don't go, Zakk. Stay.
Yeah, don't go, Zakk.